Welcome to Branding the Experience. We discuss ways how we can create environments where employees actually want to come to work and customers want to keep coming back. Brought to you by Bator Training and Consulting and Break Ice Marketing. Well, welcome back to Branding the Experience. I know I've been gone for a little while. As somebody said, I think in one of my favorite movies, 48 Hours. Yeah, I was busy.
Mm.
But I wanted to come back with some really, really good content. And we got it for you definitely in these new seasons here for Branding the Experience and Cool Culture Corner. I've got my brand new strategic partner, call her co-host, call her recurring guest, Heather Dowell from Break Ice Marketing. She is the founder and CEO, and I'm going to let her talk in just a little bit. But it was important to me to get a top-notch marketing firm as a strategic partner for Bator Training and Consulting, because as important as it is to dig into branding, culture, and strategy, which we will do on both Branding the Experience and Cool Culture Corner, as we always have. We need that marketing component. We need to be able to have the visual. We need to be able to have the social media. We need to be able to have the copy out there. And I found what I think is one of the best marketing firms that I have had the pleasure to work with over the last number of years. So, Heather, welcome to the show for good. You're not going
You.
anyplace.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you for the introduction. And it's really great to be on this first episode that you're relaunching the podcast and the video, we'll just call
I
it.
guess we call it a
Stream.
vodcast, but
Yeah,
yeah.
Spotify, YouTube, whatever, wherever we're going. And Break Ice Marketing is very excited to be working with Bator Training and Consulting. And, I know we've had several conversations. We've worked on a few projects together already, one of them being the joint website. So we've learned more about one another in doing so. And I think that our two organizations align very well in what we're wanting to provide to our clients. And that is we want effective branding strategy culture and also branding, marketing, creative, and sales support. And they all go together. One of the things that I have found, and I think, Ken, you have found too, in working with, the organizations that you work with, that you support, is that a lot of times we have, for us, because we're a marketing agency, we'll have an organization, we'll have a CEO, or maybe it's a VP of marketing, depending on the organization, reach out and they have a specific need in mind. A lot of times for us, it's marketing support. Now, we have done some rebrand projects and we've had some clients reach out to us and, they said that we want a new name. And so, of course, that's going to be the branding piece of it. And you're going to have a logo and you're going to have the color palette and the fonts and all that go with it. But I would say the majority of our projects that come in, and a lot of them are retainers. So when we first sign, on with a new retainer client, it's that initial marketing support. And so one of the things that we do when we start working with a client is, find out, first of all, what are your goals? We start before we even give them the proposal, we want to know because we can't give them a good proposal until we know what we're going to be doing, right? So what kind of support is it that you're needing and what are your goals? What have you been doing? What is it that you're wanting to do? And usually, the answers are kind of, the same. Well, we want more leads, we want more sales. Sometimes they've had an internal marketing team and they're now, looking to hire an agency to offload some of that stuff too. Sometimes they have like a marketing coordinator and they want us to, basically be their marketing support with that marketing coordinator, just being that in-house project manager type person. And sometimes they have no one except for the executive team. They don't really have, and other, departments, but no marketing team. So once we start working with that client, first thing we do is we take a look at their branding, because the branding is what drives, it's what's going to drive the marketing. And sometimes they have solid branding, and that's great. They already have solid branding. They just need the marketing support. But many times we start working with a client and we find out that their branding needs a little help before we
Yeah.
can start working with the marketing. If we want the marketing to be effective, we need strong branding. And the branding goes beyond the look and feel. I mean,
Hmm.
everyone thinks of branding is the name, the logo, the fonts, the color palette. And yes, of course, branding is partially that, but it's so much more. That's where, as you know, I mean, that's what part of you do. It's the culture, it's the strategy, it's the personality of of the brand, of the company. And that goes beyond just the look and feel. It goes, with the messaging, with the story. It goes, if it is if it's a credit union or if it's a store, when the customers or when the members, if it's a credit union, go in to visit, does it match what they're seeing on the website? Does it match the marketing that they're getting? Does it match the social media or the e-blasts? Are they all cohesive and consistent? And a lot of times that's when brokenness, that's where we find there's not always consistency. And, if sometimes it's among the culture, it's the employees. They don't even know what their own brand is.
Hmm.
Or
You got
sometimes
that right. They
yeah,
don't know the mission. They don't know the vision. I always like it
yeah.
when they've memorized the mission, and then I ask, okay, what does that mean?
Well, and I have to say, this is, yeah, I hate to say it too. Sometimes, and I'm just being real, the companies try to find this really fancy mission, wordy and it's hard to remember, or maybe it's short and concise and it sounds good, but does it really have meaning or does it just sound good?
Right.
I mean, you don't, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it has to go beyond sounding good. I mean, it needs to be a true promise. It needs to be, does it resonate? Does it mean something to the employees? And does it even make sense to the customers?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, so many great points there, a lot to unpack. Yeah, for the folks out there in the audience that, may think, because I've run into this a number of times, and you probably have too, that think that marketing and branding are synonymous.
Right.
They're not the same thing. Yeah,
No.
the marketing is the messaging, the connecting, and the branding is the image, is who you are in your core.
Mhm.
I'll give a frou-frou example. I had to have, like, a year or two ago, I had to have, some cancer cut off of my face. And, obviously I had stitches and a bandage and everything else and so forth. And the image looked like crap. But that didn't change who I was at my core. I think
Right.
maybe some people probably thought that, hey, you look how you are, man. But it's the brand is the image, and you want that reflection of that image to be accurate. And when
Mhm.
it's not accurate, you've got a real problem. And I'll lead to a question here in a second, but to give a great example, I give a restaurant example quite a bit. In fact, I think, we'll go through some of the principles of this book that I wrote 10 years ago, especially
Mhm.
because I want to find out from another expert of
Eh,
what actually still makes sense a decade later, and what may not. But I use an analogy or an example of a restaurant all the time.
mm,
Is you put out a website and say, hey, we're this great family friendly restaurant, and maybe you were smart enough to get good pictures of food,
mhm.
because I've seen a lot of bad pictures of food. But you hired a professional, you got good
Right.
pictures of your food. It looks appetizing. The website and the language in the website looks inviting. It's like, hey, let's go to that family diner for breakfast that I heard about and looked into. It looks really cool. And then you go there, and you don't get seated for 20 minutes. You're standing there to host this table. Somebody finally rudely says, you need a table, and they escort you over there. They toss a couple menus down and then leave, and then you're sitting there for like 10, 15 minutes. And I love this because it's about branding the experience. Is you
Mm,
sit there and you feel like you're invisible, people keep walking by you without anybody taking your order, coming by and giving you water. And then you finally do order, you get something that doesn't even look like the food in the website. It tastes like crap. You had a terrible service, and
Right.
you walk out without tipping anybody because you're ticked off. And then you give it a 1-star Yelp and you never go back. The
Right.
point to that is the marketing. You had great pictures, you had great copy in your website, maybe in some
Mm.
ads and social media. Maybe you had a great website developer like a Break Ice Marketing put
Mm.
your website out there, but that marketing didn't match the experience. Yeah,
Branding.
yeah, that the brand, or the culture that was
Mm.
there at that restaurant. And when
Mm.
those things don't match, basically the money that you've spent on a break ice marketing or doing that marketing has been wasted, because you've got a one and done customer that doesn't have the experience that matches the you basically lied to them. You said our brand
Right.
is X and they got brand Y. So how often do you come up with do you see that out there? See, this is
Well,
why I need to partner with a great marketing firm,
yeah.
because I think a lot of times, great marketing firms, somebody will say, "Hey, I need X," and they don't
Mhm.
realize that they need A, B, C, and D.
So it's interesting you referenced your book that you authored 10 years ago. And so I'm going to reference some points from a blog article that I wrote probably about 8 years ago. I don't remember. It was 8, 10 years ago. Because in preparation for our recording today, I knew the topic that we wanted to discuss. And so I thought, let me go back and just, I knew what I wanted to say, but let me go back and look at some of these old
Sure.
articles I wrote. And so one of them was an article on branding versus marketing.
Mhm.
Back, like I said, I don't remember exactly when it was, probably like 8 or so years ago. I felt like that was a topic that needed to be written on because there was a lot of people, a lot of, people within organizations that didn't understand the difference and that didn't understand not just the difference, but what needs to come first and then follows. So I did a whole article on that, and there were some points that I wrote down, and I would just like to just read just real quick because I think
Go
that
for it.
these are still relevant. I mean, it was written 8 years ago, but it's relevant now. It's going to be relevant 8 more years from now. And so it was just a kind of comparison. So branding versus marketing. So branding, it occurs first, as mentioned just earlier. It drives the marketing. Got to have branding before you have the marketing. The marketing occurs second, and it's driven by the marketing. The branding defines and delivers the promise, the message. So, yes, it might be that vision, that mission statement, but what does it really mean? Are we just, trying to throw together a fancy,
Yeah.
statement that sounds good, that the board approved, whoever it might have been, that, staff that hired someone came in, developed this mission statement? Are you doing anything with it once it's developed? Does your employees even know what it means, or not just what it says, but what it means? So, okay, that's branding. So then marketing is communicating that promise and message. So then once you have that vision and that mission statement, you're probably not going to just keep, saying it over and over in your marketing, but how can you get that story across that supports the mission and the vision? The branding is a pull tactic and the marketing is a push tactic.
Mhm.
The branding reinforces value and the marketing promotes value. The branding retains long term loyal customers. The marketing attracts customers' initial sales. So, yes, you're going to have branding in that marketing, but it's the attraction, whereas it's the retention for the branding. The branding is executed by the entire organization. The marketing is often executed by a marketing team. And then finally, the branding stays consistent, or it should anyway, and frequently evolves unless we're going through a visual rebrand. And then the marketing, it frequently evolves. It supports the marketing, so it's still consistent, but you're going to have different marketing tactics and different marketing campaigns, and that's all fine as long as it consistently supports the marketing. But I mean, the marketing, the branding, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
But the branding, good branding stays consistent. Whether it's that look and feel or it's that customer service experience, the customer experience. I know there's a lot of now customer experience VPs of customer experiences, And that's really to support the branding.
This has been Branding the Experience. Learn more about Bator Training and Consulting and Break Ice Marketing at www.btcinc.net/marketing.